Welcome to the Beetle Show with TMO, brought to you by GTEX Homes. I'm excited to be here. I am Tokwe Mark Odiger, and I get to do this with you every Thursday, where I get to teach you about the importance of investment, financial intelligence, how to save, how to invest, what to spend on and what you shouldn't spend on. Today's episode is particularly interesting because we're discussing debt management and the tips and tricks to ensure that you live borderline. Now, for the entrepreneurial people, they'll tell you that being indebted is part of life. Like, if you want to run multi-mega businesses, you would have to take loans at some point in time. However, every time I start the show, I tell you about what's on my shirt, and today I'm wearing Investment Guru. Now, this for me is an affirmation because I'm on a journey. I am still and would always be a learner when it comes to investment. I would still always be someone aspiring and soaking knowledge. But the goal is for me to become an investment guru. A guru is someone who understands, based on intensive study of the entire scope of what any topic is about. So right now, this is investment guru. It means that I want to become that person who understands everything, the scope of what investment should be about. What are you trying to become a guru at? What are you studying? What are you reading? What are you working your mind on constantly? Because the more you focus your mind on something, the more you can bring it about into your life. And this moment, I'm focusing my mind on being an investment guru, someone you can call upon when you have that 1 billion naira or you have that 1 million naira and you ask, what should I do with this sum of money? I'm the go-to person. On today's particular episode, we're discussing debt management, and we're discussing it because as Nigeria gets a bit more modernized, especially within this current quagmire we found ourselves, there's increase in fuel prices on a regular basis. There is increase in petrol prices, same as fuel anyway. There's increase in electricity tariff. Transportation has gone up because, you know, when we implemented social distancing, all the public transport guys just decided that if I'm going to be only carrying 3 passengers instead of 5, then I will spread the money for the 5 passengers over the 3. Because of the increase in expenditure, our life has indeed changed, and debt has become more rampant in our society today for 2 main reasons. One, lack of resources. Many of you might find yourself seemingly in debt because you actually don't have the money. And 2, mismanagement of available resources. So if you're in the category of not having enough resources, that's one side. The second side is the fact that you might be on the category of those that have they have mismanaged the resources they have available. So they say money is never enough for the rich. It is also never enough for the poor. It's just about how you prioritize. So I would say that the bedrock of getting out of debt is budgeting. But before we even go into that, even Nigeria is indebted. Even Nigeria is heavily indebted. You know, our annual budget is largely funded by loans and a bit of projection of what the oil prices would be. And this year, everybody was shocked worldwide. All that we expected to have didn't work out the way we wanted it to. So if you are in that category and you've experienced drop in your income and this has led you into debt, then stay tuned all through this show, because we will be sharing with you practical tips to help you out of the quagmire you found yourself. Most importantly, would help you avert future challenges that can come from mismanagement of funds. So I'll be taking you through budgeting, I'll take you through planning, savings, and breaking down the different types of debts that you probably are not aware exist. Some of you might be about to take a loan right now, but it's a good loan, not a bad debt. So you need to understand where you are functioning so that you would prevent yourself from assuming that you are in debt wrongfully when you are actually in a progressive positive debt. And we're talking debt management, tips and tricks to help you get ahead of the game, because right now, virtually everybody in this country is feeling the pinch of the rising prices of commodities, from food to transportation to everything that you're doing. Your basic flights has increased in price, your food has increased in price. For some people, it has even trickled down to every expense they have has gone up. So if that's your reality, start with budgeting. Start with smart budgeting. What does budget actually mean? It simply is a guide. Your budget guides your expenses. Your budget creates a framework for what you need per time. So when you want to drop a budget, understand that this budget is a framework. Even Nigeria as a country doesn't necessarily stick to expending everything they budgeted for. Neither do they go through all that they allocated money and resources to. But the budget guides you. Because when you don't have anything, it's like when you're driving on a road. Imagine there is a plain wide road and there's no demarcation between the path for those coming in and the path for those going out of that road. What you will have is frequent accidents. If you go through Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, there is a portion of the road where you're literally just facing each other, and accidents are prone to happen where there is nothing to guide. There is no framework to preserve everyone to stay on their own lane. So what you do with budgeting is to create a framework to avoid accidents. Accidental expenditures are something you should look out for. So I'll go straight to the point and tell you the first thing when it comes to budgeting is for you to have your list. So draw up a list of your daily consumables, focusing on what is important. For men, for human beings, our most important expenditure is your food, your clothing, your shelter. These you must have a budget for. And I'm going to give you a bit more guide on how to create your budget, because you can't get out of debt if you don't have a guide on how you will spend every income you have. And I talk about this all the time. I sound like a broken record, but you need to get it. It is extremely important for your financial future for you to have a budget, and as much as possible, stick to it. My expectation is that you stick to your budget 90% of the time. So yeah, 10% leeway of emergencies, but 90% of the time, stick to your budget. What should your budget entail? Your budget for weekly, monthly, quarterly and annually should cover your accommodation. What's your accommodation? Where are you living? What's your budget to pay your rent? Many people scrabble to pay their rent at the last minute. In Nigeria, sadly, we pay our rent upfront. So on the normal day, you are probably, and it's one of the places where we acquire most of our debts. Most people owe rent. It's like the easiest place to owe, because maybe you've exhausted your year and you didn't save up towards it. You didn't have a budget before your all through the year, and you are hoping for a miracle. And this tends to happen to a lot of us entrepreneurs, where we are expecting that any contract can just come now, and once the contract come, I have enough money to pay off my entire rent. What I advise you to do is have a budgeting system that helps you to put aside a little sum of money to cover the basics of life. You don't want to be out of shelter. You don't want to be out of food. Clothing can be manageable. You can wear your old outfits, but it is essential that you have a budget that helps you to replenish your stock and to plan for the future. So let's get to this point. Number one, draw up your weekly expenses. You must budget for these key areas before you do any extravagant expenditure. Those three areas: your food, your clothing, and your shelter, because those are the basic needs of men. Next thing I want you to do is understand that it is important to have savings. Now, there are different categories of savings, and I want you to get this. There are different categories of savings. You have savings for expenditure. That is, if you're saving to pay your rent, or you are saving to pay for, you're saving to travel abroad, you're saving to buy your car or replace your car, you're saving for emergency medical bills. These are savings for expenditure. Any saving you have for expenditure is a saving that is, basically you've spent the money already. You are just gathering the money together so that you can spend it. You're just gathering the money together so you can spend it. So that's a different category. Another category is when you save for investments. So this is that saving that you don't touch. Like, this is my future savings. I am investing this money in my future. Even if it is 10% of my entire income, I'm not touching it. This is going, if I'm earning 100,000 naira, on no account, no emergency will touch 10,000 naira. It is my future. I am saving for my future. Before, people used to put that money into, people put the money into life insurance. You put the money into life insurance, or you put the money into property, or you put the money into something that is there for life. You see, the advantage of property is that property is always going to be there and most likely would always appreciate or retain its value. So investments for your future are investment into property and investment into maybe into life insurances. And I think that it's very, very important that we consider this, because many times we're thinking that the savings I have is a savings I can touch. You must have the savings you touch and the savings you don't touch. You must have savings for your expenses and savings for emergency. They are two different things. So I've mentioned 3 areas of savings. Number 1, your saving, you must save for your expenses. You must save towards your food, you must save towards your shelter, and you must save towards your clothing. Many times it might seem like what you're saving is 5% for clothing, as little as 5%, and you probably don't want to spend that 5% every month. So what I do is I have 5% that goes towards clothing and all those things, and I save it for like a year, sometimes half of a year. So before, I used to travel almost every year, and I travel. When I do those traveling, I'm shopping. The shopping is based on the savings I had. So I save for my trips, and during my trips, I know I will shop for shoes, I will shop for clothes, and those specific savings and those specific money goes to those things. So if I'm budgeting 5% of my monthly income to go into clothing, at the end of each year, I can put the entire sum into clothing and I'm sorted. Same way, if I'm budgeting 10% of my income into my long-term savings, that's my property, my life insurance, my security, things that I've secured for the future, rental income space, those are long-term savings. Those are long-term savings. Then another thing I need you to always save for is emergencies. We don't plan for it, but in Nigeria, we hope we never get sick. One sickness and you're begging, and we pray that's not our portion. So as much as possible, I'll say that when you're planning your savings, you must put in these 3 into consideration. 1, your expenses. 2, your long-term goals. And 3, emergencies. Anything can happen. So there must be funds you don't have access to. There must be funds that are in mutual funds, they are in shares, they are in property. You can't liquidate them fast. If you have a property, you might not be able to sell it immediately. If you have need, you won't be able to spend that money immediately. However, if you are in that category where all your money is tied to long-term investment, then when you have a need, there's nothing you can do. You have to wait until you liquidate. So have that emergency savings that you have access to whenever the time comes up. Now let's go into the major myth for today's show, which is talking about our debts. And I already mentioned to you that it is everybody and every entrepreneur will tell you that debt is a part of life. We go through these challenges, we experience a bit of these things, and we need to go in debt. If you run a business, you need to expand your business, you will go into debt. The reason you go into debt is so that the money you are borrowing can serve for your expansion. Maybe you have a particular fashion outfit and that's your business. Now, within that fashion outfit, if you realize that you're making money and your customers are complaining, they want you to come to the island, or they want you to move to Ogun State, or they're advising you on other profitable locations, and you think that this business is good enough to go there, you might want to borrow money to expand your business. And that's good. You might want to borrow money to expand your business and rent a bigger space, or you might want to borrow money to maybe get more cars. Maybe you are into this logistics, and if you run a logistics business, it would make sense and you would expect that the funds I make from this business should make me expand. But if it doesn't make you expand, the next line of action is to take money as a loan and put that loan into expanding your business. For me, those are good debts. So let me run through quickly the types of debts you have. You have bank loans, unplanned budgeting, investment debts, and liability debts. For me, those four can be categorized into two: good debts and bad debts. Good debts are debts that are towards expansion. Good debts are debts that are towards your growth. Good debts are debts that you can see and are appreciating in value. So if you take a loan, you have a debt and you are using the debt to buy real estate in GTX Homes. Maybe you're buying Jasper Abuja, or you're buying Jasper Gardenia, or you're buying Sajos Estate. If you're buying Sajos Estate and you take a loan to buy it, it's a good debt. Why? Most of the estates you're buying it at market value, and with the way land is, it tends to appreciate. So your own advice, your own search will be to get a place where you're getting a good deal. So you make inquiries. If you find that there's an estate in a location, find 3 or 4 other property companies that are selling estates in that same location, and you will now reach out to those people and find out how much all of them are selling and get the best deal. The more deal you can get, like whenever I tell you I'm giving you 10% off, what you don't understand is that if you take a loan for a business at 10% off, at that moment you have made 10% profit. If I tell you I'm giving you 3 million naira off, if you take a loan to buy a real estate that is going for 3 million naira off, at that moment you already have a deal. So it is important for you that when you're taking a loan, know what you're taking the loan for. See, one of the major debts, and because I had a conversation, I was trying to get into people's heads and understand what the problems are, so that this show can give practical solutions to those problems. And what I found out was that many people fell into a few categories. Number one, borrowing money to pay their own rents, or they borrowed money to pay rents. Number two, they borrowed money to expand their business, but they did not understand the entire scope of the business before the loan. So they have a business that has consumed the money, but is not generating income. Number three, they borrowed money to buy something they like, something they want, but it wasn't budgeted for and they don't need it. Something they like. You know, maybe I see this, you're looking at this weave from me, and this weave is from Hair by BC. She's my friend. So you see this hair and you'll be like, oh, I love the hair TMO was wearing on our show. So you take the hair and you decide that I like this hair TMO is wearing. I want the hair TMO is wearing. And then the next thing, you go, you call up BC and say, Hair by BC, I want this hair TMO is wearing. And you take that money that you don't have to deposit. Maybe you deposit 20,000 naira and say, I'll pay you in installments. That's still a loan. That's a debt. And that's a debt that is not a good debt, because it's not a debt over something that I would appreciate. The weave on you have will not appreciate. The phone you have will not appreciate. So if you are borrowing money to buy a phone, maybe you buy a phone and they say pay over the next 1 year, you are indebted. And is it appreciating? That's another thing you should look out for. Or you're borrowing money, you're looking at a car and you say, I'm taking a loan to buy a car. I borrowed money to buy a car. At what rate? At what rate? What's the percentage interest on the car the loan you took? Then you would consider this and ask yourself this very important question. If I borrowed 5 million naira to buy a car, if I want to sell that car in 3 months, can I still sell it for 5 million naira? What would I have made from buying that car for 5 million naira or for 50 million naira? So you must answer these questions before you take any debt, before you ask anybody to loan you money. Ask yourself, is this thing I'm borrowing money for, would it appreciate? Would it appreciate? So I can borrow money for my business, and I have multiple businesses. I have the farm. At the same time, I also have the beauty business. So I can borrow money to collect chickens. I know that if I collect chickens, in about 2 months' time, my chicken will grow to maturity and I'll sell it off. And when I sell it, I make the money back. So any loan I take for investment, it would appreciate. So it is not a bad debt, that's a good debt. But if I'm taking a loan and instead of buying chicken, I decide to use the loan to do very beautiful decoration. You know, I spend the money, I decorate my farm. I make my farm have street lights, but I did not buy chicken into the farm. The farm will look very good, but the farm will not give me the money by looking good. It gives me money by buying the animals that I want to grow. So you need to be very, very deliberate and intentional when getting debts. I know that as Christians were taught that we don't lend, we borrow. That means you're not going to be indebted to anybody. People will be indebted to you. And I stand on that promise every time I'm praying that I will have enough to lend to people. I'll have enough to give out. I'll have enough to give as gifts. I'll have enough to sow as seed. Yet, I will tell you for a fact that sometimes the growth you desire in your business might need you to take a loan, and it's not bad as long as you're calculative about it and you are not increasing your liabilities but you're increasing your assets, and then the difference between what are in your assets column and what are in your liability column. So many times some things are on the fence. For me, a car is on the fence. You know, a car is on the fence. A car is on that fence of asset and liability. A car can be assets if you are an Uber driver or a Taxify driver. The car becomes your asset because the car is generating income for you and the car can replace itself. But the car becomes a liability if the car isn't generating income for you. It's just a means of transporting you from one point to the other. And maybe you bought a very old car that you need to do turnaround maintenance on it every time you're servicing the car. Everything keeps breaking down on a regular basis. That's such situation. You have a car that has become a liability. More importantly, if your car becomes a burden to maintain, it becomes a liability. So now, assets are things that can appreciate and bring value to you. If you're investing money into something that isn't adding value to you, then it is a liability. So sometimes, and I think that everyone watching this show, or if you watch the clip, you need to ask yourself this question: what's the quantum of assets I have, and what's the quantum of liability I'm exposed to? So if I have my skills are assets. If I am borrowing money to acquire skills, I am acquiring assets. If I am borrowing money to acquire things that would appreciate, things like I'm buying a house or I'm buying a land or I'm creating a new chain of business. If I am taking a loan to set up maybe a recharge and build business, if that's what I'm taking a loan, in such situation, I would 100% advocate that it is it's an asset, it's a liability. So weigh your options, do the calculation, and be sure that you are not scaling towards the side where you have exposed yourself via debt more to liabilities than to assets. Your assets would fund the liabilities. So I want you to be deliberate about it, and the aim of this show is to give us enough knowledge and give us enough resources to guide us so that we're not fumbling around in the dark, hoping and wishing for things to change, when in actual fact, the entirety is all within our control. So there's something else I want you to take note of. I really, really want you to take note of it. When it comes to eliminating debts, it starts with one thing. One thing. Because, you know, I said that the reason many people go into debt in the beginning is that we have, one, mismanaged our resources, and two, we lack enough resources. Now, in Nigeria, I want to assume that for many of you that would watch, it might not be mismanagement, it might be lack of resources. And if your case is a lack of resource generated case, then I would say expand your income. Expand your income. Think of ways to earn more money. Because in this modern day and age, we've realized that while you can make money from your physical labor, you can have multiple streams of income that would help you out. And I know that some people don't buy into this idea of multiple streams of income. They feel like it's a way of confusing our next generation and confusing ourselves. I'll tell you, no. Multiple streams of income is very, very, very helpful. So if you have a set of income that covers your basics, we said the basic is the first thing you knock off whenever you're planning your budget. And I told you that disciplined budgeting is essential for you to have financial freedom. Disciplined budgeting is essential for you to have financial freedom. So when you have your budget and you're trying to stick to your budget and you realize that your budget you don't have enough resources within your budget to allow you to live the life you want to live, then let the budget cover your basic. Maybe your salary is going to only cover rent, or your salary would only cover clothing, or your salary would only cover food. If salary knocks off food, then you now ask yourself, how do I provide shelter for myself? Where would the money for my shelter come from? And that question would inspire you to start thinking of other things you can do. So I've learned something the personalized way, and I'll share you my personal story. As a makeup artist, I make money from services. The money I make from services will provide me food. It will probably provide me a bit of shelter. But if I want to be able to expand my shelter, I needed to add training. So it's still within the same market, it's still within the same industry, but I can now train people on makeup and earn more money from it. So maybe you're a videographer, or maybe you work in a company as a business administrator. Your salary might be owned when you the salary, the thing cover shelter. Maybe you just say, my salary goes straight to shelter. I pay tithe, I eat and shelter. And sometimes the truth is you might be paying more. You might be living above your means. You might be living in a place that is beyond your budget. So if your house rent is more than 1/3 of your annual salary, then you are in trouble. And I think I've said this before on the show, but I'll repeat it again. If your house rent is more than 1/3 of your annual salary, then you are in trouble. You are living above your means. Because if your house rent, imagine you're earning ₦1 million per annum, that means you earn less than 100,000 naira per month. If you're earning ₦1 million per annum, it means that your house rent must be less than 300,000 naira in a year. So if your house rent is then you are in trouble. So I expect that we are conscious of this when we are doing our budgeting, because our budgeting is very, very important. The better you are with budgeting, the more you get out of debt. So that's number one. The next thing I want you to do when it comes to your exit plan from debt, the first thing I was talking about is, I think I forgot, yes, have variety of income. Having various streams of income to avoid being in debt. Your monthly salary is never enough to sustain, considering the economy, so will save you a lot of future tears. Now, to put it nicely, like I was saying, 1 month salary would go strictly into shelter. Another income you are generating will be going into investment. Another income you're generating might go into taking care of your parents. In Nigeria and in Africa generally, we are very, very communal. If you're old enough to work, you're old enough to have parents, and it is a sign of responsibility for you to take care of your parents. So what is the percentage of your income that goes to your parents? How do you ensure that you are taking care of them? Because for many of us, our parents paid our school fees, fed us, nurtured us. So what do you want to use to say thank you? So on a monthly basis, you have to have a budget of what goes to taking care of your parents. And so the reason you should have multiple streams of income is that you can say, I have invested in this Greek real estate, and I'm going to use any return that comes from this investment to support my parents on a monthly basis. You can say, I am a caterer. I do cakes, but I'm going to be doing small chops on the side. Any money that comes from small chops would go into taking care of my parents. Any money that comes from cake will go into my shelter, my clothing, my feeding. Any money that comes from training will go into the future investments, long-term investments, your mutual trust, your lands, your rental property that you should buy or you should look towards buying. So when you diversify, it might still be within the same industry. That's what the example I'm giving you is to help you understand that you don't start a different job to have various of income. You just need to plan better. So you might be a caterer and you are doing party events. You know that any money that comes from events, I'm going to channel it straight into long-term investment. Then you will say any other money that comes, maybe I have 2 schools that I provide them food on a daily basis, and that's a recurrent. So any money that comes from the school food I'm doing as a caterer, I'm going to put that money into shelter and clothing and feeding for myself and my family. Then you now tell yourself, I have another catering I can do. If I am catering for people, I'm doing cooking and dumping it at home for them, dropping, you know, those bowls we do now, a bowl of soup, a bowl of rice, a bowl of fried rice. If you are doing any of all those ones, you see any money that comes from those bowls, I'm going to section that one and I'm going to keep it for my parents or emergency funds. That is the kind of budgeting I want you to have in mind. And that is how you can spread your income without leaving your industry. And you can be like me. Leave your industry and expand. So I am a communication expert here and I'm a host on a show, but I also at the same time make money from makeup. I did micro shading for somebody, that's the same permanent eyebrow for someone on Tuesday, and that brought in a much needed cash flow because other things I was expecting money to come from, it didn't come. So what did I do? I channeled another stream of income I had, which is my makeup and micro shading skill, and I use that to earn money temporarily. So in that same vein, I also have a farm, and I have chickens and I have fishes, and those ones too are growing and they will bring in money. You might expand within your industry or you can expand outside your industry, but you must expand your streams of income. So maybe you are teaching your skill or you are coaching people, but one way to get out of debt is to expand your stream of income. And I want one key way for you to expand that. I'm building a team, my team at GTEX Consultancy Program, GCP. These guys, I meet with them every week on Zoom while I advise them to come right here every Wednesday for training. I motivate them, I coach them, and I help them get the tools they need so that they can sell real estate. And when they sell the real estate, they make extra money. Because at the end of the day, real estate is one of the easiest industry where you can go with little knowledge and make a whole lot of money. So you can also join the GCP program. Use the link in my bio at TMO Speaks, and I would love to welcome you into my group and coach you into building another stream of income. Taking you quickly into other ways to get out of debt. Invest in real estate. Finally, we can't overemphasize investing in real estate. I must say it over and over again. It is essential. Land banking is something that Stephen Akitayo has been teaching about over and over again. If you are missing it, you need to go on Stephen Akitayo's Facebook page to study all the classes he's doing on land banking, because it is a very, very wide area. So, if you are investing in real estate is a sure banker. It's a guaranteed way for you to build another stream of income that is constantly expanding. Now, if you are invested in many properties, however, you find yourself in a situation, you could sell them off and save yourself from disgrace. As women, we used to invest in gold. I know my mom extensively for a long time invested in gold. And while she was building one of our real estate properties, there was a time where she was cash strapped. There was just no cash coming in, and she was able to liquidate her gold. So while you have real estate on one side, before, gold used to be a good store of value. Right now, I'm not so sure how valuable gold is, because the rate at which your gold would appreciate might not be the same rate at which real estate would appreciate. So there's some real estate that are not really appreciating. A friend of mine bought her land in Ibadan for 40 million naira in Bodija. True life story. She bought her land in Bodija for 40 million naira, and 10 years down the line, she's trying to sell the land, the same property now, and it's still 40 million naira. So my question was, what happened? Could it be that when she was buying the land, the price was overhyped? Could it be that the land area was already at its peak? So for many of you that say, I want to buy a land in Magodo, and you're buying a land for 80 million naira, or you're buying a house for 80 million naira, it might not be the best way to invest your money, because if you are buying a location or an area that has peaked, you cannot have much increase in what you would earn. If you are buying an area that has peaked, you cannot have much increase in what you want to earn. So look for developing areas. The people that make money from land banking or make money from real estate are those that buy into developing areas. You buy Ikorodu like 5-10 years ago, and there's a particular location in Ikorodu that GTX is selling right now, and the promo ran through. I would ask them to put up my number again. Sapphire Estates. If you are buying estates in areas that are not so out there, you're buying into Jasper. These are developing areas. These are areas that, whether you like it or not, the price of those areas will skyrocket. It is a better way to invest your money than buying a real estate in somewhere like Omole. So if you want to buy a land in Omole, they'll tell you should bring 50 million naira or 80 million naira. And in 10 years' time, the price difference might just be like 5 million. So even while investing in real estate, you need to be wise, you need to be smart, you need to look well and look to areas where investment is going and areas that are developing. So consider Jasper Estate in Abuja. Even if you think the estates, oh, I can't afford estates that are like 15 million or 25 million naira, but you can afford a 2 million naira estate, buy into it. Because the more you buy into these estates, the more you buy into them, the more you are able to keep your money and keep your wealth growing. Now, when you choose to liquidate such money, you get a higher value for it. You will definitely get a higher value for it. So like I was saying, another thing you can use as a vehicle for getting out of debts is that when you have surplus, don't spend it all. When you have surplus, buy things that you can sell. Our mothers back in the days, they used to buy this Asolandis. Is it Asolandis or Orlandis? Orlandis. And this Orlandis, maybe you buy horse or you're buying the chicken head or something. I don't know, they have these names they call them. When you buy them and keep them in good condition, you can sell them at almost the same value. But that was then. Same way we could buy gold then and we can still sell gold and you know you're making profits. But right now you need to be very deliberate. Is buying Orlandis Ankara going to give me value for my money in 10 years' time? What value am I going to get? Some people will tell you, don't buy cheap shoes, don't buy fake shoes, buy original designer shoes. It might cost you more money, but if for any reason you are in a fix and you want to sell them, someone will buy those designer shoes from you, but they will not buy the fake shoes from you because fake shoes will go bad. So anything you're buying, ask yourself this very important question. Would it have value if I want to sell it? Think about it. Because if it is not to you, it is taking value away from you, and that is the lesson for today's show. Anything you're doing, if it is not adding value to you, it is taking away from you. So be very deliberate to ensure that you are putting money into things that are adding value to you, not into things that are taking money away from you. When it comes to debt management, one thing you should know is everybody at one point in the other might go into debt, but just be sure that you are going into wise, intelligent debts. You're managing your resources well. And I also mentioned that with the increase in our expenses, many people are struggling to catch up with what should be on ground. So number one tip when it comes to debt management is to have a budget and be disciplined about your budget. Number one tip when it comes to debt management, budgeting, disciplined budgeting. That means I have said 10% is going here, 20% is going here. I don't shake it. I don't change it. And in that same budget, you must create a miscellaneous fund, a fund that you don't put a price, you don't put something to it. so that you have a little leeway to make a bit of flexibility. So it is important for you, if you want to escape debt, to have one, budget and be disciplined about implementing your budget. Two, have savings, and I broke down 3 categories of savings. Number one, your savings that go into your everyday important things, your basic needs, your home, that's your shelter, your food, and your accommodation. You must have savings that cover these 3. That's your number one. Number two, you must have savings for your future. And number 3, you must have savings for emergency. Because your future savings might be tied into mutual funds, might be tied into a real estate that might take you months to liquidate. It might be tied into shares that might take a while to liquidate. So, but there might be emergencies where you need to liquidate cash quickly. Such must have a savings on its own. So, number one, it's key for you to be disciplined with your budgeting. Number 2, save. And number 3, weigh the liability or asset viability of your real estate, of your expenditure. Is this expenditure I want to carry out, is it an asset or is it a liability? An asset is something that appreciates in value. A liability is something that depreciates in value. And I spoke about how your car can be a liability and at the same time an asset. If your car is depreciating from you, you are having to fix it over and over again, it's a liability. If your car is a venue for you to make money, if you do Uber, your car is an asset. And when it comes to you taking loan, most importantly, if you have to borrow money, here are a few things to guide you when borrowing money. Think about it. Would I die without this thing? If you are borrowing money to buy a weave, it's not important. If you are borrowing money to buy a shoe, it's not important. If you are borrowing money to buy a phone, it is not important. But if you are borrowing money to invest in your business, if you are borrowing money to buy a real estate, because I have fantastic offers for you. There's Beetle 2, there's Sapphire. At the same time, we have Jasper in Lagos, and we have Jasper Gardenia in Ibejuleki. We also have Jasper in Abuja. At the same time, we have Sedios Estate. So all of these estates are available to you for a fantastic deal. Now, aside from that, when you now want to buy any of all these estates, so sometimes I give you 3 million naira off, sometimes I give you 1 million naira off, sometimes I give you 10% off. Those offers might only last for a short time. If you take a loan to get real estate offers that are given to you at a discount, those are good investments. And then you can now find a way to keep paying back those loans little by little. Or if you are owing money, but your debt is for a real estate, you bought a land, you paid a down payment of 2 million, and every month you're now paying 1 million naira. That is an investment. That is not a liability, that's an asset. That is the category of debt you should be having. If your category of debt is not an asset, then stop it right now and start saving towards leaving those debts behind. And I told you the best way to get out of debt, if you're already heavily into debt, is to expand your income. And the way for you to expand your income is by you decisively increasing avenues, making inquiries, or you can join GCP program. GCP program is called the GTEX Consultancy Program. It's an avenue for you to learn how to sell real estate and make money from selling real estate. People get as much as 10% off. The last payout was 750,000 naira side income that somebody made from selling real estate, and you can be that next person. I will teach you how to do it. Most and final thing I'll tell you today. If you are indebted right now, understand that you can work your way out of it. So no suicide, no depression. Many people that have committed suicide in recent times, this happened because they were in debt and they wanted to hide their shame. So what I'm going to tell you is, if you are indebted and it is a terrible situation, please don't commit suicide. Don't kill yourself. You will get out of it. There is always a way for you to get out of this debt. And there's always a way for you to build transgenerational wealth. That's what the show is about. Thank you for your time and thank you for watching. If you have any topic you would like me to discuss, put it in the caption. If you have anything that maybe you want to be a guest on my show, put it in the caption. I want to hear from you and I appreciate you and I value your time. Thanks for staying with me.